On December 20th, 1968, a young couple went out in their car on their first date. They wanted privacy, so they turned toward Lake Herman in California. In the car were 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen and 17-year-old David Faraday. Neither of them knew that a stranger was following them. They had just stopped near Lake Herman when another car pulled up behind them. The man inside told David and Betty to get out of the car. When they refused, he fired a shot at their rear tire to scare them. Terrified, David and Betty immediately got out and ran, and the man shot them both. David was hit in the head, and Betty was shot 5 times in the back. After that, the man fled the scene right away. This was the horrifying incident that started the search for one of the most infamous serial killers. Yes, we're talking about the Zodiac Killer. Welcome back, viewers, to another video from Raqem TV. The Zodiac Killer is one of the scariest serial killers of the 20th century. Between the 1960s and 70s, he terrorized the entire San Francisco area with his brutal attacks. He would send letters to newspapers and the police, proudly admitting to his murders, and he'd even send puzzles for them to solve. After committing his first 2 murders, he went quiet for 6 months. But then, he reappeared with another murder case. July 4th, 1969. America's Independence Day. 18-year-old Darlene Ferrin and 16-year-old Michael Mageau had driven out to get fireworks. They noticed a strange car was following them. To shake it off, they turned into the parking lot at Blue Rock Springs Park. But the car following them also pulled into the parking lot. At first, he parked right next to them. But after a few seconds, he reversed and drove away. Seeing that, Darlene and Michael breathed a sigh of relief. But that relief only lasted a few moments. The strange car came back, and this time it parked behind them, blocking their way out. A man got out holding a powerful flashlight, which he shined in Darlene and Michael's faces. At first, they thought maybe he was a police officer. But then the man started shooting at both of them, and immediately got back in his car and fled. Darlene died on the spot, but Michael survived with injuries. A little while later, 3 kids nearby called the police. Michael had seen the killer's face, and with his help, police later made a sketch of the killer. The most shocking part of this incident was that on that same day, at 12:40 a.m., after the murder, the Vallejo Police Department got a call from a stranger. He was calling from a phone booth, but he hung up before saying anything. That was the first phone call the Zodiac Killer made to police. About a month later, on August 1st, 1969, the Zodiac Killer wrote letters to 3 different newspapers. In the letters, he took responsibility for the Lake Herman murders and the murder of the girl at Blue Rock Springs Park on Independence Day. To prove it, he gave details only the police knew, like what kind of bullet was fired, how many shots hit, and what clothes the victims were wearing. Along with the letter, the Zodiac Killer also sent an encoded message. He demanded that this cipher be published in the newspaper the next day, or he would kill more people. The encoded cipher was sent to intelligence agencies to be decoded, but for now, it couldn't be cracked. The next day, after the cipher was published in the newspaper, a couple who saw it cracked it that same day. It read, "I like killing because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all to kill." In the cipher, he also wrote that he believed in an afterlife, and that the people he was killing would become his slaves in the next life. After the letters to the newspapers, there was silence for 2 months, but the Zodiac Killer showed up again with a new case. On September 27, 1969, a college couple was having a picnic by Lake Berryessa. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard noticed a man walking toward them. He was wearing a black hood with the Zodiac symbol on it. As soon as he got close, the Zodiac pulled out a gun and demanded money and the car keys from the couple. Brian had 75 cents on him, which he gave to him along with the car key. Then the man gave the car key back to Brian, and at gunpoint tied both of their hands with rope. Then he pulled out a knife and stabbed both of them multiple times. Thinking they were both dead, the Zodiac Killer went back to the car and wrote a message on the couple's car before fleeing. In that message, he wrote the place name, date, time, and the weapon used. A fisherman found the couple injured, and they were still breathing. They were taken to the hospital, but Cecilia died from her wounds, while Brian survived and gave police all the details about what happened. Just like his previous killings, the Zodiac called the police that same day at 7:40 p.m. and gave all the details of the murder. Here, police discovered a specific pattern in the Zodiac Killer's actions. First, he only targeted young couples. Second, his attacks happened on weekends or near holidays. Third, he would attack either in the dark of night or at dusk when there was faint light. Fourth, he proudly admitted to every murder he committed, like he was challenging authorities. Fifth, most of the murders happened at well-known dating spots. Sixth, most murders were done in or near cars. And seventh, most murders happened near water. From these 7 patterns, it seemed like maybe the Zodiac was heartbroken or had a specific hatred for women, because in 2 of the last 3 attacks, the men survived. But the police didn't know that the Zodiac's next target was going to break that pattern. Just 2 weeks after the last murder, on October 11, 1969, the Zodiac flagged down a cab driver named Paul Stein at about 9:30 p.m. and told him to go to Maple Street in Presidio Heights. When the driver reached his destination, the Zodiac waited for the car to stop and then shot Paul Stein at point-blank range. After that, the Zodiac got out, sat in the front passenger seat, and cut a piece of Paul's shirt and took it with him. During this murder, 2 kids from the 2nd floor of a nearby building were watching the whole scene. They immediately informed the police, but they made a mistake. When describing the Zodiac's appearance, they said he was black. A police car was patrolling in that area. They immediately headed toward Maple Street and ran into the Zodiac, who was walking through light fog. Now, because the police were looking for a black man, they didn't suspect the Zodiac much, because he wasn't black. The police stopped and asked the Zodiac if he had seen anything strange in the area. The Zodiac told them that a man waving a gun had gone down the next street, so the police rushed off in that direction. But if the officers had gotten out and looked at the Zodiac, they would have seen bloodstains on his jacket. The Zodiac had once again managed to escape police custody, but police did find the Zodiac's fingerprints on Paul Stein's car. A few days later, the Zodiac wrote letters to newspapers again and described the whole story of Paul Stein's murder exactly as it happened. And as proof, he sent a piece of Paul Stein's shirt. This time, he threatened to attack a school bus. That threat sent a wave of fear through the whole area, and police started following all the school buses for the next several weeks. But no attack ever happened on a school bus. With the help of the kids who had seen the Zodiac, a new, fresh sketch of him was made and distributed to all taxi drivers. And this time, the Zodiac came back in a new way. Exactly 10 days after killing the taxi driver, on October 20th, 1969, the Zodiac called the Oakland Police Department and said he wanted to talk on a TV show with Mel Belly, who was a well-known lawyer at the time. It was Channel 7's talk show, which started early that day. After waiting a bit, the Zodiac called, but hung up. When he called again, this call lasted longer. In this call, the Zodiac gave his name as Sam. Throughout the whole show, he called 35 times, but only 12 of them went on air. During the calls, the lawyer asked some questions and Sam kept giving weird answers. Later, it was found out that the Zodiac hadn't made the call at all, because people who had heard the Zodiac's real voice all said this wasn't his voice. Investigation revealed the call had been made by a mental patient in Napa State Hospital. A few weeks after the TV show drama, newspapers received 2 more letters from the Zodiac. Between those letters was an encoded cipher that he wanted published in the newspaper again. The first cipher had been cracked in one day, but this one was much harder and couldn't be decoded for the next 50 years. A few years ago, in 2020, 3 code breakers used computer software to decode the cipher. In that cipher, the Zodiac didn't reveal anything about himself or give any important clue. He did say, though, that the caller on the TV talk show wasn't him. In the letter he wrote to the newspaper editor, along with the cipher, police finally got a clue. This time he was threatening police that he had made a bomb that was sitting in his basement. In this letter that ran several pages, the only useful thing was this. If he was telling the truth, it meant the Zodiac didn't live in an apartment, but in a house where there could be a basement. And at that time, basements weren't that common in the Bay Area, meaning the Zodiac didn't live in the Bay Area. By mentioning his basement, maybe the Zodiac made a mistake. 5 months after those letters, on March 20th, 1970, the Zodiac tried to kidnap a woman named Kathleen Johns on Highway 132, but luckily she managed to escape. When police showed Kathleen the Zodiac's sketch, she immediately recognized him. For the next 4 years, the Zodiac kept sending letters and ciphers. In some, he gave murder details. In others, he wrote movie reviews. In one letter, he even gave the location of the bomb. But police found no bomb at that location, and no explosion ever happened. His last letter was received on January 30th, 1974, in which he wrote his murder score like this. Me, 37 SFPD 0. Meaning, I've killed 37. San Francisco Police Department's score is 0. But police said the Zodiac was exaggerating the numbers, and that the number of murders done in his style was only 5. Police and other law enforcement agencies like the CIA did deep research on the Zodiac's behavior and his method of killing, and concluded that the Zodiac wasn't an ordinary person, but had military-grade knowledge. The footprints found at crime scenes were from a type of boot called wing walkers, which are normally found in military stores. Besides that, his experience with cryptology and ciphers might have been something he gained during military service. Now, because the Zodiac Killer had created fear across all of America and was getting a lot of attention, many people falsely claimed to be the Zodiac just to get attention, which made the search for the real Zodiac even harder for police. At first, police suspected a man named Arthur Lee Allen. A lot of evidence pointed against Arthur. For one, he had a military background. Second, a watch was found on him that had Zodiac written on it with the symbol. But neither Arthur's handwriting nor his fingerprints matched the Zodiac's. After years in police custody, he died in 1992. Police's second suspect was a man named Richard Gaikowski, because his face looked like the Zodiac's. But other than that, his handwriting and fingerprints didn't match the Zodiac's. Even though this case got massive publicity, the true identity of the Zodiac Killer remains a mystery in the crime world to this day. Who was the Zodiac? Why did he murder so many people? And besides that afterlife story, what was his real motive? I hope you all will like and share this Raqem TV video a lot too. Thanks so much for your loving comments. See you in the next amazing video.